The craft of creative copywriting is what we are going to discuss today. And first of all, good afternoon to everyone. There are a lot of people here, a lot of ladies here, which is very nice to see. And I'm hoping that this hour that we are going to spend learning a bit about this very creative concept will be taken very well by all of you. And of course, there might be a lot of questions. So if there are questions, I'm always here to answer them. Just keep putting them in your chat window as we go on. And one by one, we shall take it up in the last part of the class. So maybe during the last half an hour or so, we'll take up all your questions, right? Okay, so let's begin. Right. Okay, so the craft of creative copywriting. Now, I don't know how many of you know about copywriting as a field. Most of you might have heard about it. It's sometimes very difficult to identify what is content writing and what is copywriting, right? There is a lot of confusion with that. But that's what I'm here to clear today. Let's clear some confusion. Let's clear the air about copywriting. It's a very creative field. It's a very unique field. And I'm sure that by the end of this, you will get to know a few things about it, which can maybe push you in the right direction if at all you're interested to take it up, right? So let's move on. Let's try to learn a bit about craft of creative copywriting. And well, as we are on it, or while we are on it, let me give a brief introduction about myself. This won't take too long. I don't want to sound really boring here. But I think most of you can read what's written there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading that out or mentioning it to you. To make it very short and sweet, I've spent about 14 years of my life doing this. I've been in content writing, I've been a designer, I've been a consultant, a lot of things put into one. So there has been a lot of confusion in my life with what I had to do. But well, here I am today teaching all of you, or training all of you, as they say. And I think that's where I belong. So as a consultant, as a designer, I've spent a lot of years doing what I do. And I think I'm currently heading a couple of brands, one of which is the mentor version, which is helping people like you who are making career changes, who are restarting, who are finding new fields to do something, right? So the mentor version, Monkey Funky Studios, and well, a lot of other things on my mind. So from there till now, well, here I am today. But again, introduction should be small and shouldn't be boring. So let's move on from here. Let's deal with the main topic of interest. So before we jump, I want you guys to tell me if you remember any of this. And not the pictures, by the way. I'm sure you know about the pictures here. You know what McDonald's is, you know what Coffee Day is, and you know what Kit Kat is, right? But do you remember those lines? Have a break, have a Kit Kat. Fuel up, feel good. The best coffee for the best you. Now those lines essentially are a part of what we are going to discuss today. Creative copywriting deals with exactly this. You see a lot of images on the internet. You see a lot of things floating around, right? I'm sure there are plenty of websites out there. There are plenty of things that you see and that you remember, more than just the images. And yes, Shraddha, you're right. Those are taglines, absolutely. But more than taglines, you can call them as captions. Images always have captions. Of course, there are a lot of aspects to copywriting that deal with this particular area. And this is a very creative field. It's a very open field, a very creative field. Most people, of course, would argue that it's a little difficult for some of their minds to get creative. Or maybe it's a little difficult to jump in at first because you don't know which direction you have to take. So maybe through this now, I would try to put a helping hand out there. And with this, I think this would be an ideal start. But as we are on the ads, now that you'll start to think a little creatively as we go on. You'll remember the image of the burger and the coffee image and the Kit Kat image. So this being a Friday, I think this helps, right? We are all in that foodie mood and all in the weekend mood. So maybe this will help you out. But let's move on from here. Let's actually see what this field is all about. So what is copywriting essentially? Now, copywriters are a little different from normal content writers because content has many aspects, as you know. We have writing for social media, we have writing for blogs, we have writing for websites, and God knows what. It's a really vast field. But copywriting is a very essential part of content writing because it is amazingly creative. A good copywriter, as it says in the definition, is not just a writer. He's a different person. He or she has to be creative in the first place. They are keen study of human psychology behind purchase decisions. So what copywriters essentially do is not just pushing out a product or a service to people, but they actually try to make a sale out of their writing, which is very difficult to do. Yet it is one of the most ideal fields to be in if your mind can work creatively. And I think that is one of the biggest things that you can easily do. A lot of people have told me that this is not very easy. It's a very difficult thing to do. You can't be creative. People can't think like that. And it's not something you can learn. But I beg to differ. I always beg to differ with these things. I think the possibility is always there that you can learn and you can move on from there. You can always learn these things. You can be creative. You can become creative. You just have to have a knack for it. And sometimes you have to change your mindset. That's what it requires. But let's move on and study this a little more. So let's try and understand this first, point by point. So 4 facts about copywriting that everyone should know. Fact 1, a good copywriter will play around with words to grab more attention. So like we saw with the Kit Kat ad and the out of the box thinking. Yes, Shraddha, you're absolutely right. I can see it in the chat, out of the box thinking. That's very much required here. When I say playing around with words, it's not that you're doing something amazing with words. It's just that you're modifying the simplicity to make it creative. Everything simple works for people. I've never believed that simplicity doesn't work. I think it works wonders for people. But you can make it a little creative, make it a little more into the zone of people. You speak their language and they buy what you're selling. That's what I believe in. You have to speak the people's language. But selling apart, I think writing, when you're writing creatively, first of all, you must know the art of playing around with words. And that is something a copywriter has to do first. It's essentially moving words around to sell better. That's what I just said. So you can sell better if you have the ability, or you can learn the ability to play around with words. And it involves being extra creative because, of course, it's not normal writing. So you're not going to write a paragraph on a website and leave it, or it's not a blog which people would read and forget. You want lines that people remember. You want to write something that people can identify the product with or identify the service with. And that's what the best copywriters end up doing. And of course, what you can write for. What are the kind of things you can write for? Well, you can write for websites. Every website needs creative bits to enhance the reading capabilities for people. That's where you can work. You can also write emails, creative emails, and this concept is very, I think, a very rare one. But there are a few people who are hired only to write creative emails for people, especially by ad agencies. You can write for collaterals, brochures, catalogs, and whatnot. So the field is really open. The only condition is you have to be a little creative. You have to make sure that the creative juices are out there. And you can pick a few things that maybe someone else cannot pick. So that's why the differentiation would be there, right? Okay, let's move on from here. Yes, so why people hire copywriters? What is the reason for someone to hire someone who writes well? There are a lot of things which come into mind when you think of creative writing or creative copywriting. You all see ads on the internet. You see Google ads. You see brochures for different products. Twitter, I'm not sure how many of you are on Twitter, but yes, you have to be on Twitter. If most of you are not on Twitter, here's a tip. Please go on Twitter. I think you can learn the best copywriting on Twitter. One way of learning it. Of course, you can't learn everything on Twitter, but that's a great place to see how people use different lines to convey a message. Someone like Amul Bhatta, yes, Neha, you're absolutely right. I think they come up with the best creative lines ever, according to me. I think they have someone sitting out there who can, who can come up with some very weird but very, very creative lines that we all remember. And I think everyone mentions Amul as an example, which I think is a very right example. Website creatives, like I've told you, creatives which are needed for websites, mentioning about the team, about the capabilities. Now, here's the difference. A lot of you might think that writing for a website might involve a bit of formal kind of writing. It's true, but again, it's not always formal. Sometimes, in some places on a website, you need a bit of creative touch to be there. writing on the web is a very tricky challenge because you can't always have people believing what you write. If you want to make it believable, as I mentioned earlier, you have to speak their language. You have to know what I can feel when I'm reading it, then you can write well. And that's the trick here. Image captions, Facebook ads, press releases, forms to fill out. Now, how do you make a form interesting to fill out? Yes, even there you can be creative. You will see in most of the most of the websites which are governed by creative agencies or by branding agencies as such, they will always come up with something creative. So you find it really interesting to be on that website. It becomes like an experience for you. And of course, taglines. Someone just mentioned taglines here, and yes, that is absolutely right. But coming up with taglines is not an easy thing. So you have to put in a lot of effort to make sure that you have the winning one. But that's where the challenge is of this field. Yet, if you can be creative, then of course you have a lot of options. So who would hire copywriters? All these guys who need these services, which I have mentioned to you right now, all of them need copywriters. And you're always searching for one because not one person can be creative for everything. There are different people who are creative at different things. So everyone needs a creative writer, and that's the reality right now. But let's move on ahead. We have a lot of other things to discuss. Now, moving ahead, how do you get into it? A lot of people have always asked me, how do I get into it? How do I make the most of this opportunity? Well, I want to keep this answer very simple because there are a lot of ways in which I can complicate it, but I don't want to. I think if you have any background in journalism or marketing as such, even previously, that can help you. But yes, it's not something which is really required right now because things have changed now. I think what we have become, not just as professionals these days, but the working conditions have become such where people are now ready to grab onto anyone who is creative and useful to them. So that person doesn't necessarily have to have a background in journalism or marketing for that matter. I have seen a lot of people, in fact, who have been my students previously, who have been from mechanical engineering, who have been from hotel management backgrounds, who are now working as creative writers. So this has happened. This transition has happened. I'm not saying it's an easy one, but it's not a difficult one either. It's somewhere in between. If you can prove your creativity, there is nothing like it. People would still go ahead and hire you. So don't think that the part where I've written is education required. Of course it is. But do you have the aptitude for writing? Can you actually write well? If you can prove your ability, as it says, it doesn't matter whether you have studied or not. And that's the reality right now. Experience, yes, you have to get some hands-on experience. It's always better when you begin your career. If some of you do choose to have this as your career, and once you have learned the tricks of the trade, again, from someone who's a person like me or anyone else for that matter, who can teach you well, by the way, if you have learned it from someone, the next best thing to do is get some hands-on experience. And there are a lot of people out there who would give you that experience. For example, in our case, as a brand, we make sure that we have at least 1 or 2 new writers who write for us on different websites and blogs to make sure that we give them some experience. They might not write the best things in the in the beginning, but it gets better as time goes on. And to get hands-on experience, you can work with anyone. There are lots of opportunities out there through which you can get small-time projects. You won't get a lot of money for it, but in the beginning, I don't think that's important. In the beginning, it's important to get used to the field. In the beginning, it's important to make a good headway into the field. You can always make money out of it. And within this field, you can make a lot of money here. Portfolio, yes, you need a good portfolio. If you have written bits that you can present to people, it works in the best way possible, especially with ad agencies out there. You have a lot of ad agencies in Bangalore, for example. The hiring process these days has changed. So now you have to prove what you can write, how you can write, and then the rest of it is put to rest, because no one else requires to know how much you have studied and whatever you have done. Okay, so there are some questions coming in here, and I'll come back to those. You need some web presence, right? Most of you, I don't know whether you know the importance of having a web presence. Some of you might have this. Some of you might be writing blogs out of just a hobby. some of you might be on Twitter, some of you might be, on Facebook, whatever, but that's just social media and that's nothing to do with your work as such. But if you want to have something which you really want to do in terms of starting a career in this field, have some sort of a web presence to go with it. Have a blog somewhere, display the lines that you have written, display the writing that you have written. There is nothing better for a person like me. Let's assume that I am the person who is hiring you. There's nothing better for me than to see some work that you have done somewhere, and then based on that I can always talk to you. Because nowadays it's important for a person who's hiring to see something you have done. It's not just based on your certificates and your degrees, although it's equally important. I'm not denying it. But these are fields where only your degree will not work. Only a degree in journalism won't work anymore, because not everyone who has a degree can write. Let me be very frank here. I never had a degree in journalism. I still don't, by the way, but I can write. So if I can do that, then it becomes very easy for people to work with me. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And finally, the one point which remains at the crux of all this is to persevere with it. Sometimes people just give up because, I have seen people who say, okay, I'm not just creative enough and I can't do this anymore, so I'm just giving it up. But that is not something you should do. It takes a little time for you to get adjusted and, put your foot out there. But once you do, I think it's all smooth from there on. So don't give up on this. And I know most of you right now are restarting your careers. Most of you are looking for options to build your careers again. This is even more important for you. You've spent a lot of time, maybe doing something else now, and you're trying to get back. Now the perseverance has to be even more. So, but that helps, I can tell you. For whatever years I've spent my life, I think I've taken about 14 years to be where I am today. So the initial part of my life has always been like this. It's been a struggle, but because I've always persevered as I've gone on, well, this is what I get. So once you have done this, it's not difficult to then progress further. So if you're serious about becoming a copywriter, as I've mentioned it there, stick with it. It will probably take you some time to get good projects, get your foot into it. But once you do, it's a very easy thing to do. And it's a very easy thing to pursue in the future, right? Okay, moving on. What is the scope? Again, a question I get a lot from people. What is the scope? So one by one, I'll take this. Now, where do people work as copywriters? I think I have already told you there are many options to work in this industry, starting from ad agencies. And ad agencies are very cool to work with, by the way. If any of you have experienced it previously, you would know. But if you haven't, then I can tell you it's a very cool place to work. You have a lot of creative people out there, right? It's not like a normal office. It's not a 9-to-5 thing. And I don't think it is something that even compares remotely to the kind of things we are having these days, especially people who are in IT. Sometimes you end up feeling sorry for them because they are working 12 hours doing the same thing day in, day out. But that's where the difference is. As a copywriter, as a creative person, you are always working in an environment which also is creative. So that gives you something really good, not just in terms of feeling, but in terms of the completeness that a person is always hoping for. So every agency out there needs someone creative to work with. Social media, yes, a lot of you, I'm sure, are active on social media. You might be on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram, God knows what. If you are comfortable working with social media, and I'm not talking about your personal profiles, because what we do on personal profiles is a little different. Here, you're expected to handle a lot of projects for a lot of brands. You're expected to write for a lot of creative agencies. You're expected to write for a lot of companies which come to you with just the requirements of getting something creative done from you. So handling their accounts would be one of your roles which you can get. You can write for websites. Every website out there is going to need content, not just content, creative content. If you need something on the formal level, yes, there are a lot of other things for that too. But the creative part, not many people can do. I'm repeating myself again, but let me tell you, you cannot have everyone writing in a creative manner. That's pretty much impossible. But yes, a lot of people can be creative. You can learn to be creative, and you can do this. So anyone out there right now, out of you 49 people who are online here, think I'm not creative. I cannot do this. I can't think creatively. Well, I have news for you. You can. Just need to learn it. You just need to have someone pushing you and say, you can do it. You can be creative. And I can guarantee you 200% you can do it. The fourth point here is about collaterals. As I have mentioned it before, brochures, ad papers, marketing, any stuff for marketing. You have big hoardings out there which you see on the streets, right? Even those are written by someone. I don't know, and I'm sure all of us have seen it, and everyone sees it, right? You see it on streets everywhere. On MG Road you go, you see those big hoardings with all ads, right? Images and captions and whatever. It just attracts you towards it. And it's not just the picture, it's the writing too. Nothing creative is only with images. Visual part is always there, and it will probably dominate up to 60%. But then the 40% comes from your writing. It has to come from your writing. So there is a lot of scope and a lot of options for you to do this. You can go and work in an agency, you can work with social media handles, you can work with websites, you can work for collaterals. So essentially you can pick what you want and you can do. It's totally up to you. You mark your circles, right? You mark your circle for creativity. You say, I can do this. I can only do it up till here. Fine, no issues. You get very good at that and do it. And then you can obviously expand as you go on. But a creative writer should never be restricted. Let me give you that tip as well today. Don't keep yourself restricted to one thing. If someone works in an agency, let's assume some of you learn it tomorrow and get into an agency. Fine, go and work there. Go and work there for 1 good year, or even if you are working part-time, let's assume some of you might be working part-time, or you might want to work part-time. Even those options are there. If you take it, if you start working with them, do some good work, get some experience, and then move on. Because it's always better to expand your horizons. Try and do more things as you go on in your career. When you restrict yourself, that's when you stop. So don't stop. You can always keep doing things as you go on, right? Okay, that's about the scope. Let's move on. Yes, now what do you do to prepare? What are the preparation steps, if I can call them? Now, the first thing to do while you're getting into this whole thing of copywriting as such. In the meanwhile, I think I'm getting a lot of questions. Yes. So I'll just come back to that. Know the landscape. It's very important to know what you want to do in copywriting. Copywriting also has different types and different styles. And as I have mentioned before, you can't be good at everything, at least not in the beginning. You will have to learn the bits and pieces every now and then. So to get better at one thing is always recommended. You start by doing something which you like the most. For example, you might be writing very well for ads. You might be very good at captions, small taglines and stuff. If that is something that attracts you, begin with that. And then you go and maybe handle social media accounts later. So because internet is going very quickly right now, you must always know what's the trend, what's in, as they say. And let me tell you one thing, all you girls out there or all you ladies out there, you always know the trends, right? And in fashion you do. Okay, don't lie to me. In fashion you all know what the trend is, and you follow the trend and you know the trend. So all you have to do here is just pick that mindset and put it to something else and say, yes, I also know the trends in this field and I know what to do. And because it's a growing field, everything in writing is growing, by the way, just to give you guys this news. Everything is growing in writing as a career. So this is just a part of it, but yes, everything as it goes on, it improves and you can improve with it. Find what you need. So you must understand the kind of role you'll be happy with. And I'll tell you why I'm saying you should be happy with, because you don't want to end up doing something which you're not happy with. It never works. In the broad sense, it never works with anyone. I know most people have done things in their life which have not worked for them either ways. So ideally, if there is an opportunity to change that, then you must take it. So work on something that you really feel you're good at, even creatively, because there are many options out there. Some people only handle social media accounts. Like we have a couple of girls who work with us right now who again work part-time with us, but they do only the social media stuff for us. So we have just left them to do that, nothing else. If they're comfortable with that, they should only do that because they would enjoy it. If you're comfortable with something, you enjoy it, and then the rest is just a breeze, as they say. Have some realistic expectations. Again, this is not, this is not something which you will just do in a bit, right? It takes some time, as I've said. You have to make sure that you're out there. People need to see some of your work that you have done. It might just be sample work. I'm not saying you have to work for someone and then show it. You can create a sample portfolio, have it with you, present it to people so that they can get an idea of what you have done, which is very, very important for you to do. And the final point is actually very, very important here. Be prepared for tests. One thing which you will observe here, most of you will observe, is that when people make a selection about any writer, be it creative, content, anything, you will have to do some tests for them. You will have to write a sample blog. You will have to write a paragraph for a website. You might have to write a creative ad. You might have to write a Facebook post. You might have to write a Twitter post. It goes on. But if you can do it well and prove that you actually have the knack of being creative, you're all done, because nothing else is required after that. Most of the writing depends on the creative mindset. And for the creative mindset to be there, you don't need to show a book saying that I know this. You just need to prove it, right? And yes, someone is saying something here, Shobha, I believe. Okay, you really want to work which gives, okay, which gives me, right? I need to enjoy my work. Oh, you left the software field. Okay, Shobha, good. The reason I'm saying good is because I know how it feels, right? You're working in one cubicle day in, day out. It's not going to help you, right, in the long term. So this is the time to explore. This is the time to explore. I think for all of you, this is the time to go out and explore things. Now you have a lot of options, and all these options are available to you. So you can do much more now. Earlier, we were all restricted. There were a lot of things which we couldn't do, but now we can, luckily. So the preparation essentially is going to be these 4 steps. Know the landscape, find what you need, have realistic expectations, and be prepared to give a test, provide a test. Tell them what you actually know. Prove it to them, and well, they would take you. I'm telling you, they would hire you any day. Let's move on. Okay, what roles can you take up? Again, a question that a lot of people have asked me. So, at least in copywriting, you have 3, 4, 5 major roles that you can take up. Creative copywriting, I think most of it depends on creative copywriting these days. Content copywriting, which involves writing for websites most of the times, but again, it's not that creative copywriting and content copywriting are any different. There are subtle differences between all fields because they are related to one specific job. So creative copywriting would involve writing for a lot of ads, a lot of creative stuff that goes on in marketing. Content copywriting comes down to websites, it comes down to blogs, so it's a different area. Sales copywriting is all for collateral, so you can have, the hoarding example that I gave you is a part of that. Brochures, flyers, etc., etc. So a lot of things that are used essentially for sales, it would involve that. Technical copywriting is a little different from all this. There are a lot of documents which are written by organizations to use within, and even to to share with clients sometimes. And that is not just technical writing, it is all sometimes in some companies, especially which are creative in nature, or branding agencies as they call them, they require something known as technical copywriting. So for each and every process, they have a document and they are technically written by people. There is a bit of jargon used within that language, but it is written in a creative way. In some cases, not in all cases, because for, let's say, for MNCs and stuff, you still require only technical writing. But there are a lot of places where it has to get mixed up with something creative. So that's where technical copywriting comes in. SEO copywriting is, again, it's a little boring, to be very frank with you, because it involves a lot of keywords and search engines and stuff. So if you are interested in knowing about search engines and working with Google closely, that's a field for you. But ideally, because copywriting is such a wide field and you have so many options here, you can take a pick from whatever suits you best. Wherever you feel you can make the most of the field, you should go for it. And this depends completely on a person's mindset, as I've said before, because a lot of places have a typical way of working. An MNC would have a typical way of working. An ad agency would have a typical way of working. If you can suit yourself to that, you would be happy. So pick one that suits you best, but all of them have equally good options right now. And most of them actually require people. The problem right now with most of the writing bits is that there are not many people who are there, who could do good writing. There are a lot of people who write, but I don't think people can write very well at times. So there is a difference, isn't it? There is a percentage difference. Someone can write well, you can say he's 50-60%, but someone writes really well, you can say he's 90 to 95%. So it's always better to be in that 90 to 95%. There are fewer people there, so you can get more out of it, right? But all these options are available. Let's move on and let's see what else we have. Yes, so now I think most of you, because you're starting out and because you're restarting, you would have an option of working as a freelancer, right? And that option is there, very much there. Especially in copywriting, it's always there. What are the advantages of working as a freelancer? And believe me, there are a lot of advantages of working as a freelancer, because in copywriting especially, you don't have to be restricted to one company. It's not something that people do these days. There are a lot of copywriters who have never been with one company at a stretch. They've done, there were many companies that they have worked with. And the reason for that is you are a unique source, which is point number one here. It's very hard for a company to let go of a creative person. If I start writing for you, and if your ads are doing very well over the internet, why would you leave me, right? So I set the terms for working, and then I can work on them. So it's not the company who sets the term, which is very, 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 very essential to a person who's working as a freelancer. As a freelancer, I'm open to do whatever I want to do. As a copywriter, especially the creative copywriting bit, so not everyone is creative. As I've mentioned there, it's very hard sometimes to get a creative person. And writing as such, the second point, which says can't be automated, is not just for creative bits of writing, it's for everything in writing. Nothing can be automated in writing. You can't tell a computer to be creative. Maybe in the future they'll have programs for that too, but it's never going to be a foolproof thing. No computer in the world can be creative by itself, because it's a machine brain at the end of the day. So it cannot work like ours. And that's the biggest advantage of that. So because only people can be creative and some people can be extra creative, you're always more in demand. This is also a chance to make very good money out of this. You'll be surprised to how much copywriters charge for the kind of work they do, because they can be creative. And when you're close to a point of sale, as you are in creative copywriting, and you do good work, you can justify your cost. So that's really a big thing. They can never say that, okay, I'm not going to give you this much money because you have not done this correctly. No one is going to say that. If you are doing good work for them and their ads are running very well, like Amul does, I'm sure the guy who writes for Amul is getting paid a lot of money for that, and he deserves it. He or she, whoever that is, that person deserves the money, because I think those ads are doing very well, isn't it? You all would agree. And yes, as a freelancer, of course, you can't be fired because you set your own terms. You would set the terms for what you can do and what you cannot do. So that part actually works very well for you. If at all you have, you lose one client, you can always make a lot of other clients, because everyone needs a writer at the end of it. And yes, as Neha says, because we were on the Amul topic, I'm sure that they have, you have done a project for them. Very nice, very good. So I would like to know what kind of projects you have done. But they have a team of copywriters. Yes, most of the bigger companies would have a team, yes. But at the same time, a lot of the companies, including the ad agencies, for one product or the other, or for one event or the other, they would need people to write for them. And that door is always open. So it's not that if people have their own team to do that, then the doors are always closed. No, the doors are still open. You can still go and you can still write for them. They would never say no to that, believe me. Everyone needs the creative bits to come from all directions. As I've said, not one person can do everything, every time. Oh, they're highly creative. Yes, coping up gets difficult. You're right. Yeah, yes, Yes. Okay, so that's why being a freelance copywriter, it is naturally something that most of you can take up to begin with. Some of you, yes, you might want to work full time in the future. You can take that up as well. It all depends on how you can project yourself. I have not essentially added a slide here to tell you how you can work full time, because it is exactly opposite of this. So if you still a few points remain the same, you will be the unique source for the company. That doesn't change. None of your work can be distributed to someone else just because the company feels so. That cannot happen. And you can either ways make good money. As a freelancer you can, as an employee you can. In the beginning, of course, as an employee you will have to jump a few ladders and then get to the top. So that's always the way to go. But as a freelancer you even save that much time to do that. Of course, the disadvantage of that is, as a freelancer it's difficult to get projects sometimes and get started. But of course everything takes time. So the advantages and disadvantages are always divided, as they say. But opportunities, as I've told you, are always there. So as a freelancer or as an employee, copywriters are required, and they are very much in demand, by the way, these days. So if some of you have done any kind of research on this, if you have, then it's really good. But if you haven't, maybe it is now the time to research a bit and see how much this field is opening up as of now, and with how many avenues. Okay, there are a few questions coming up, but I'll get to that in a bit. Right, now the steps to take for it. What are the kind of steps you have to take? The first thing is, which I think I've always recommended to people, is you need to learn and reskill. There is no alternative to learning something from anyone who has been in the field or who knows the field. And the reason for that is, there are a lot of aspects to not just copywriting in general, but to any field that people might not know of or might not be aware of. Most of the times it depends on a lot of factors, because we have lost touch with a lot of things we have done previously. So we might actually not be in a position to know what has changed and what kind of options are available and what actually works in the industry. So anyone who has worked in the industry, anyone who can help you reskill, that should rather always be the priority for you guys. Secondly, you have to build a sample portfolio. I always recommend this to everyone. It can get you work from anywhere, for that matter. So you must building a sample portfolio. This is something you can do very easily. I think start by having a blog first. I know that most of you, or maybe some of you, might not know how to start a blog. Some of you might have a blog. I'm not judging here. But if you guys have a blog, then maybe it's time to promote it a little more. If you don't have a blog, I think it is time to start. It's time to give people something to read. And that's the only way. Okay, I'll answer your question, Neha. It's something in the chat window here. So yeah, building a portfolio is something that will help you to present your work to anyone, because it is something you can share online. So you don't have to go anywhere for it. You just can provide the links and people can have a look at it. Even on platforms like LinkedIn now, people are sharing their bits of writing, and that's become very common now. If you go and follow anyone who's a writer on LinkedIn, you will realize that they share a lot of their work on the platform, and many people read it. So they already know what kind of things they have done, which goes a long way in getting you some projects. Getting social. I'm assuming that most of you are social. I think most of you are using Facebook, you're using Twitter, or you're on WhatsApp. I'm sure everyone is on WhatsApp. Now, if you are going to diversify and pick a niche and work on it, you have to get more social. When I say social, it's not spending time on Facebook. It's probably spending time on LinkedIn as much. Getting in touch with people, trying to network, trying to make sure that whatever you do is known by them. And that's essential to anyone who's looking to be successful in their career, because it's not enough to build a portfolio now. It's also important to network yourself. And that's a part of getting social. The fourth point actually is extremely important here, which I think most of you will have to do because you're restarting. There are a lot of things we have done before, right? You have done before, not me, I'm sorry. You have done before. You all have had your careers maybe, and I think now at this point, you're all looking to start afresh. You're looking to do something else. So let go of everything that has happened in the past. It's of no use anyway. So when you're starting out fresh, you have fresher ideas, you have a fresh mind, and I think the ways to do work will get more easier from now on. But first, you just let go of the baggage. Sometimes when you carry it with you, you always tend to think in the past. You don't think for the future or the present, and that's not something which is going to help. So the ideal way to do this is to let go of everything that's happened. Just go out there with a fresh mind, and in a career like this, especially the copywriting part or any writing part for that matter, this actually helps, because the more you do this, the more creative you become, and you are in a completely different zone. And that's what we all must do, and especially for you ladies, I would advise that, right? So take this first steps into this career. It's a hugely successful career, but the problem is some of you might not be aware of it, some of you have not explored it completely, and of course we all have half information, isn't it? So I'm hoping that this kind of has helped in the process. Now this is important for some people, and hence I'm just sharing it for you guys, the salary structures that people have for copywriters. Now when you're starting out, obviously it's not going to be huge, but you have different options to start with. As I said, depending on the kind of work that you have done previously, or you can portray, you can get n number of things done for yourself. Senior, junior, whatever it might be. People always start off with junior copywriters and then you progress towards the senior ones. But please also remember that everyone has its own responsibility, and there are a lot of things you have to do as a senior copywriter and as a junior one for that matter. So things will keep happening, but the point is, if you do it correctly and if you become a good successful copywriter, there is no stopping you. So it's just the first step that matters at the end. If you have taken that well, I think the field is wide open for you. So I don't believe much in numbers, to be very frank. It's just a number I've put up, and it might make some sense to some of you, or you might say, why this? But I have to show you this because everything that I tell you today might work in some manner to encourage you to take this up in the future. And I've picked some topics which have always been of fields that are very much in today. They are very much in demand today, and this effectively happens to be one of them, right? Okay. So as I sign off this particular presentation, some pointers to remember. If at all you find that this is interesting enough, now I want to take a plunge, I want to do something here. If you have to do this, well, get the lay of the land. When I say get the lay of the land, please know more about it, right? Talk to someone who knows about it, get some pointers in, know what the field is, know what the field does. It's very important. Master the art of concept. I've always believed that anything you write or anything you do, it's not just about writing. Anything you do depends on the concept. That's the idea, right? That's where you start. If your concepts are clear, you can do anything. And that's why, when some people said they cannot be creative or they are not creative, I think that's where the concept thing comes in. Because when you do this, you have the ability to master where the idea came from and what the idea can become. That's where you have to jump in as a creative person. Plan your strengths. Know what you're good at. I cannot emphasize this enough. Everything, when you plan it out correctly and you know what you can do, you will achieve better there. Don't do anything that you are not good at. If you can master something and do it correctly, of course, I'm not saying don't put efforts, because if you say I'm not creative, I'll never do creative writing. That's not the way to do it. Within creative writing also, there are a lot of aspects you can cover. If you learn what creative writing is and how it works. Build sample work. I've already told you this, so I'm not going to emphasize on that anymore. Branch out, reach out. Two things which are very important. Branch out as in go out. You guys have to go out. I think when you go out there and when you network, you meet people, you learn something from them, I think it really helps you no end. This is probably one of the biggest thing that's that's going to happen even on the 16th when this Jobs for Her guys have the event. These are the kind of things that will help you. You need a place where you can meet people, you can network, you can get newer ideas into your mind, and that's where the branching out and reaching out points come into the picture. So be it creative writing or any other field for that matter, because I'm speaking on a very general term here, Get to know the field, master the art of concepts, plan your strengths, build some work. Everyone needs to see some work. Branch out, reach out. So it's a very, very simple deal. So as I come towards the end of it, I think it's very important for me to tell you that you can connect with me very easily for any doubts, any clarifications, anything you want to talk about. So wherever you feel that you want to talk to someone who knows a certain field, and you can just email me, call me anytime, and this would, I think, help you. So this is not a, this is not something that you should be thinking twice about. Don't think twice about this. You must always pick up the phone and, well, start a conversation, because that's the only way to make sure that you get newer and fresher ideas. I'm going to come back to some of the questions now, which I think have come. Let me just go back and see. As I'm going back, I'll just try to answer them for you. Okay, Shraddha has been using WordPress. I think, Shraddha, which is a nice idea. I have seen people getting confused with copywriter and copy editor. Yes, Neha, you're right. I think there is always some confusion between copywriters and copy editors. Look, let's understand the difference first between writers and editors. Editors are people who effectively finalize a copy of writing. They might not be actively involved in writing, but they would edit your copy. It's like a movie, right? When a movie is made, it's made in a lot of films, right? You have a lot of sections in a movie, but then the editor would edit some parts out, and you will have the final draft. So that's the basic difference between editors and writers. Writers are writers, so there's nothing to understand that. But editors are people who would finalize a draft. So I hope that answers your question. Is copywriting part of digital marketing or separate? Shobha, copywriting is a very general. It's a very general field. It's a part of digital marketing, yes, but it's not restricted to digital marketing only. You can do a lot of things with copywriting. Yes, as a part of digital marketing, you can do a lot more being a copywriter, but that's not something which is a part of it. It's a general field in nature. Okay. A jingle that Aarti wrote, probably. Yes. Words that leave an impact. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, that's also one of the things that you do in copywriting, by the way, leaving an impact, right? Suchi Das, let go of the career baggage. Thankfully, I'm very glad you liked it. Purnima, okay, you're good at writing. Okay, not sure of creative, you said at this point. Okay. Okay, Purnima, I think if you're a good writer, there is no reason why you can't be creative. But as I said, the creative bits or converting your writing from normal to creative takes a little bit of time. And yes, it has to be learned, of course. You need someone to guide you and say, yes, that's how you have to be creative. Because sometimes there is a difference between just normal writing and the creative bits of writing. But you can be creative. Please understand that if I'm saying this, I mean it. It's not that you cannot be creative. If you're good at writing, you can be creative as well. Okay. You travel a lot, leisure trips. Okay, if I got to do that, would it help me to enter into copywriting field? Of course, Purnima. Why? See, if you write a blog, if you end up writing about your experiences, it helps, isn't it? If I get to read it, I'll get to understand it, and it helps me. Obviously, it helps me. So please go ahead and do that. Please write about it. Please share it with everyone. Let everyone see it, because that's the only way to jump into the field. And of course, you can do it. Portfolio of blogs need to cover what area of interest? Okay. Kavita, I can tell you that portfolio for blogs can have a lot of areas of interest. It shouldn't depend on what people want. It should depend on what you want to write about. So if you can write about travel, please go ahead and write about travel. If you are good at writing about wellness, please go ahead and write about that. So for me, when I'm judging you or when I'm seeing something in writing, I'm not essentially seeing it for the topics. I'm seeing it for the style, right? So I'm picking your style. I'm not picking the topic essentially, and that should help. Yes. So I've never written on blogs. Any good free sites which I can start writing? Okay. I think if you're going to start, Sudipta, I think if you're going to start, I would recommend just go to Blogger and have a have a quiet start there. I think Blogger works very well, and I think it's connected to Google, so it's even better. You can just have a small little blog, start with the first post, create a good enough create a good enough profile there, and most people would get to see it because obviously it's with Google, so they promote their own blogs a lot. When you say sample portfolio, does it mean focus on content? Neha, yes. Now when I say on content, I'm not saying it's just about content at the end of the day. It's also about the style of writing, right? Your content at the end of the day would come in second. What I would try to identify if I'm looking at a copywriting career or a copywriting person that I want to hire, I want to focus on the style more, not just the not just the part where you have written about a certain topic. So that's not what people look for, but yes, the quality of content would matter at the end. Of course, it matters at the end. Any other questions? I'm just okay. Madhuri says, I've written for a few of the online jewelry stores and then ads for friends. It's going to be a good career. Of course, Madhuri. If you're doing this seriously, and I don't know how much of work you have done, but if you have done some creative work here, there'll have to be some ways of presenting it. I think that probably is an area where you might have to work on, because I don't know what exactly you have done. But if you can do it, then the field is wide open, and yes, you can make a career in it. Of course. Where do I start from if I want to start part-time with no experience? Any company for beginners? Shweta. Okay. Shweta, yes. If you want to start off part-time, yes, there are a lot of companies who hire part-time, especially the startups. Right now, there are a lot of startups which are, which are hiring writers like you, part-time, of course, and you can work. But as I mentioned throughout the presentation here, you would need some sort of a portfolio build. You will need to showcase it to them. And there is a way to approach. I have always emphasized on the part of networking, and that's where all this comes in now. Because even if you don't have any experience, please don't let that bother you, because most people feel sometimes that experience is the only thing that people require. No, although it's an important aspect, but people are still looking for the the base, which is in this case is the creativity. So if that is there, there is no way in which they'll not hire you. It's just that you need to create a portfolio, and there'll be a few targeted approaches you'll have to make to some companies. Of course, if you want some more details about this, please get in touch with me and I can help you out. Okay. Okay, good. Madhuri is probably I've been able to convey a few things nicely, which is very good for me to hear. Okay, Purnima says, I know I'm a good writer, but not sure of the creativity. Okay, yeah, I think I've already answered this. Okay, I think I've covered most of it. I'm just scrolling down to see if I have something else left which I haven't covered. Portfolio, okay, this part is also covered. Okay, our content writer and copywriter. Okay, Shilpi has asked me if content writer and copywriter are the same. No, they are not the same, Shilpi, because when you talk of content, content itself has many different divisions. Essentially, copywriting is a part of content writing, but it has its own areas and branches, as I've just explained in the presentation. When you talk of content writers can be blog writers, they can be SEO writers, or they can be technical writers for that matter, or they can even write for corporate websites. So that's a little different from copywriting. Copywriting has always a dash of creativity to it. So if you want to differentiate between the two, please remember the word creative. If you are creative, you are essentially a copywriter, not so much a content writer. To get a landing page written for a blog, what kind of skill set should I look for? Chitra Das. Okay. So Chitra, I think if you want to get a landing page written for my blog, there are different skills you require effectively. I'll have to elaborate it, tell you the answer for this question. And I think it's better if you can ping me separately or get in touch with me on email. I think I'll be able to tell you clearly how to do that. For a restarter who is new to the field, and Pallavi is asking me this, along with the blog, what else can be included in the portfolio so that employees consider the person is good to be hired? I personally was a trainer and worked in some technical, okay, yes, but more interested in creative writing now. Okay, good, good. I'm sorry, I think I jumped the slide here. Okay, so Pallavi is asking me, let me just read that once again. Okay, apart from the blog. Now, I think what you can do, Pallavi, is look, a blog is of course a sure shot way of presenting your work, and that works very well. But the second most important factor which can come in handy for you is a platform like Twitter. I don't know whether you use Twitter as much. If Pallavi is using Twitter, if Pallavi are using Twitter, that would be great. But if you are not, then I would advise you to make sure that you start using it, because I think what happens with Twitter is it gives people a sense of your creativity therein, because it's just Twitter is more to do with one-liners, isn't it? You can display a lot of things on a platform like Twitter. Blogs, of course, would work very well, but Twitter goes a long way in presenting people, what sort of creative mindset you have. And because you want to be more creative now, I think that will help you. Again, you have to tell me if you are on Twitter, but if you're not, probably that's another platform which you can, provide a link to. I would also recommend sites like Behance. Behance is a good site. You can display some creative work there. Have, make an image, have an image of something creative like a burger or pizza or whatever. I'm just giving examples. Push a tagline along with it if you can be creative, and post it on Behance. Have a portfolio there. That always helps. Okay, Bhuvaneshwari is asking me 8 years of career gap for me. Okay, will it be easy to enter this field? Why not? Why not? Okay, 8 years. Yes, it's a long time. But this field, as I've been mentioning, is quite an open field right now. So it doesn't really matter. Your previous experience, it might be in a different field for that matter. It really doesn't count. Okay, so this is a completely new thing. You can start afresh. You can approach companies like a person who has just come there, who is just being creative and who's writing, not just as a hobby or just something that a person has learned. But yes, you can make headway into this. So please don't think that the 8 years gap is going to affect you. Keenly entered in the creative writing, though it is very different from what I have experienced. Is there some course in the same which can help us? Yes. Ring. Okay, Ring. I think yes, there are different programs on creative writing. Some of which, of course, I have myself moduled for people like you. So even for this, I think it's better you get in touch with me directly, and I think I can totally guide you and tell you how you can get or make a headway into this field. Because as I've been mentioning this as well along with my presentation, it's important to learn a few things. I'm not saying you, most of you, if you have written well in the past, you can be creative. So maybe the only thing that a person like me or anyone else for that matter can teach you is to be creative. That's it. I can just add pointers. I can refine you. I can't build you, but I can refine you. So that's something which I can surely do. Please get in touch with me for that directly. Okay, Bhuvaneshwari is interested in advertising and passionate to work in it. More ideas. Okay. So I think Bhuvaneshwari, I've already answered that part for you. Oh, okay. Okay, Purnima, thank you very much. Of course, you are more than welcome to connect with me. Do you need to be instructional designer to have better quality of presentation or content writing? Suchi Das. Okay. No, not necessarily. I think, look, here again, better quality of presentation or content writing? No, it's go back to the last slide. Can I get a phone number and email? Okay. So I'll do that. I'll do that for you, Shraddha. I think I'll just revert to the last slide. Okay. So what you guys can do is you can email me here, or I think the best thing is I'll actually have 2 slides back to back for you. The best way is to get in touch with me on this email, of course. You can just make a note of this. I'm also putting this in the chat window for you guys in case you guys need it, right? And I'll come back to what I was telling Suchi. Yeah. So Suchi, I think you don't have to be an instructional designer to have better quality of presentation or content writing. But these are 2 different aspects actually. If the presentation, I don't know in what aspect you're asking me, but if you need some specific answers for this in terms of the presentation way and the content, you don't have to be an instructional designer for it. This is again something which can be done very easily with the creative bits of it. You just again need to learn it a bit. Okay, their jewelry is still in good position in the market, but still struggling. Okay, Madhuri. Okay. Okay, Madhuri, I would suggest kindly get in touch with me directly. I think you need some very specific answers, so I can actually help you with that. Any short online courses which could help? Kavita, yes, there are a lot of courses, but let me tell you one thing very clearly. There are a lot of courses out there, but not all courses cater to what you want to learn or how you want to learn it, right? So I think the best thing to do is get in touch with someone who can module a certain program for you. I think that always helps. You need someone to tell you the good parts and the workable parts of your personality. If you want to make a career in this, that will help you better. So if you can do it, as I've said, please make a note of this email ID here. I'm also pushing out my phone number on this. So just for all you guys to make a note of, I think I've just put it in the chat window here. So please make a note of my phone number. The email ID is right there. So if you can get in touch with me, then I can tell you exactly what to do here. Okay, age factor is mental hurdle for restarters. How do companies look at it? Okay, Pallavi. Let me tell you something, Pallavi. It's the age factor, especially now, if you are considering writing as a career and especially the copywriting part, no, the age factor doesn't come in. It's not. See, I think there is a saying that a lot of people actually use age is just a number, right? Which is actually true if you believe in it. Especially for girls, age doesn't matter here. For you, how does it matter? And especially, let me tell you one thing clearly, girls, ladies out there, any company, if you go and approach them with good work, will hire you. It doesn't matter to anyone, because I've seen people working in writing who are 50 and beyond for that matter, but they still write, and they write very well. So even if you are a restarter, the age factor is only going to affect you, or you're making it affect you. It's actually not there. Don't have that notion in your mind. It's not there. Companies will not look at that. Companies will, at the end of the day, I need someone creative to work with me. I don't care what your age is, okay? And most of the companies think like that. So please don't have that in mind. Okay, Arthi, can I be in a full-time job as well as do copywriting, probably on weekends, on after? Of course you can. Of course you can. Because this is what you can do, right? You have that time and you have those available slots in the weekends. You can decide how much work you want to take up. Just work with one agency to start with, or work with a startup to begin with. Write some captions for them, write some image captions, write some taglines for them, and leave it. You can always do that. So that's always open to you. Chitra, thank you very much. Are there any courses on copywriting? I know I can write blogs. My question is how to brush up the skills. Yes. So Radha, yes, there are some programs which I myself do on every aspect of writing, whether it is content or creative. So if you need it, please make sure that you get in touch with me and I'll surely help you with it. I'll explain everything. Can you spell the website you recommended is Behance? Yes, Pallavi, you're right. Behance, you can just Google it, by the way, and I think you will get the exact link to it. Okay. So I think the last slide, which social media site can we follow you in where you're very active? Okay, Purnima, you can get me on you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Facebook, by the way. I think some of my very creative and cool bits I keep putting on Facebook, but please note that is my personal profile. So what you see there is not something that I completely believe in. It's just something I put out on the internet. But yes, that is something I've always done. So if you really want to have a good time laughing at something, please come there. The same thing with Twitter, because that's where you can actually be very creative. So yeah, so I think what we all can do, I think, ladies, is that we'll probably wrap it up here. Okay, I think I've tried to answer all your questions, and I believe there are many questions out there which you want me to answer. So please connect with me. Please connect with me anytime you want.
All right. Well, Omkar, I will also send you the list of questions that we've received through an email, so you can get back to them on that later.
Of course, right? Of course, I would.
Thank you so much for this wonderful session. It was really informative and really inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you for your valuable time.